Welcome to Fun with Old Warframes featuring Ivara. The purpose of this series is to encourage players to touch Warframes just in their inventory out of fear of them being too weak. The builds I present aren't necessarily meta or new player friendly, but I always make sure they are viable for leveling up Void Cascade so players can have fun, as dying and not doing damage is not fun. Lastly, I aim for my builds to be unique from already existing videos, as the builds I present come straight from my creativity and aren't a copy-paste of someone else's video like some people do. If I don't find a unique build, then that Warframe will not get featured into the series until I find one. The next video will be coming at a later date, as due to my laziness, new updates came and there is room for improvement. Putting all that aside, let's move to Ivara. Starting with the Warframe build, these are the mods and arcanes that I'm using. I'm going to explain how the synergy works between the abilities and the mods so that you understand what you sacrifice in case you want to change anything in the build. For the first ability Quiver, we only care about the zipline and the cloak arrow. The cloak arrow, thanks to our augment and powered Quiver, allows us to continuously remove any applied status effects on us while inside the bubble. The bubble rate is small, so it can't be used easily while on the zipline, as you need to shoot an object close to the zipline to benefit from it. If you use narrow-minded, the range will be incredibly small and it will be even harder to have a safe bubble while on the zipline. For that reason, I'm using primed continuity instead of narrow-minded. If you don't mind that, feel free to change narrow-minded and see if you like it more. The zipline isn't affected by range at all, so don't worry about that. Now for the zipline, our augmented and powered quiver provides us with a 100% critical damage bonus that scales with power strength. The zipline will help a lot if you want to be a defender in Void Cascade, as you can traverse through the room quickly while having the bonus critical damage. In this build, we're going to be using Coda Synapse, so we won't be using the second and the fourth ability, as there are plenty Artemis Bow builds out there. Next on the list is the third ability Prowl. Prowl is a channeling cloak ability that offers bonus headshot multiplier while invisible. Any actions aside from jumping and rolling breaks the invisibility and disables the ability automatically. Your movement speed is very low while it is active, and for that reason I'm using Infiltrate Augment, which gives us movement speed bonus that scales with power strength. Infiltrate is going to be your free to change mode in case you don't mind the sluggish movement speed while Prowl is active. The bonus movement speed is helpful when you are on the zipline, helping you go back and forth the room quickly without bullet jumping to the other side and breaking the invisibility. Lastly, we have Roar Helmet for our faction damage source. I put it in the 4th slot thinking that I could use Precision Intensify, but with my tests, I concluded that Umbral Intensify gives us more damage overall as it affects both our first and third ability, while Precision Intensify only affects the fourth ability. I'm saying overall because I tested with an Electric Lex Prime, and the main target takes more damage with Umbral Intensify, while the surrounding targets take less damage compared to Precision Intensify, on which the surrounding targets take a little bit more damage with our electric procs, while the main target takes less damage. But when you are on the zipline, Umbral Intensify completely dominates Precision Intensify, so now let's go back to the mods. For survivability, we have Catalyzing Seeds. Again, seeds via an Ogre mod on the Grimoire, which I'm using as an emergency energy weapon with Energizing Shot. Don't worry, you will rarely need it. I'm just mentioning it as a bonus since we won't be using Xenoric. Lastly, for the Grimoire, be sure to equip Amalgam Barrel Diffusion for the extra dodge speed. Brief Respite is not needed, as any shield gained will give the full 1.33 second immunity duration, which is a bug by the way. For shield gating, the best option is to spam Prowl, as it is the only ability that allows you to shoot and reload while casting. Spamming 3 makes you visible to enemies, so sometimes you might want to spam her 1 with Cloak Arrow to remove status effects, or the Sleep Arrow for crowd control. For power strength, we use Umbral Intensify and Transient Fortitude to boost our headshot multiplier, critical damage on the zipline, and roar. For energy conservation, I use Fleeting Expertise, as you will be breaking the invisibility a lot to move around, and spamming 1 or 3 for shield gating. Remember, you don't need to have Prowl active all the time to move. You can just activate it before shooting to avoid the movement speed penalty as much as possible, as the activation cost is small after all. Don't worry about the channeling cost, as it is cheap even with my 68% duration. If for some reason you tweak this build for more duration, keep in mind that her third ability's channeling cost caps at 0.25 energy per second. Lastly, we use primed flow, but not primarily for energy conservation, but increased multishot with arcane overcharge, but that's for later when we get to the weapon section. On the Exilus slot, I use primed sure-footed because the range of the cloak arrow is small, so you can't depend on it being active all the time. For the aura mode, I use worthy camaraderie to boost my critical chance on headshots as her build relies on them. Now for the arcanes, we will obviously use Arcane Crepuscular as it gives critical damage and power strength while invisible. Now for a synergy I didn't consider when first making this build. As we have two cloak abilities, we can use Cloak Arrow to activate Arcane Crepuscular and then cast Prowl inside the bubble, which will take our headshot multiplier from 1.8 to 1.92. So when you want to cloak, use the Cloak Arrow first and then activate her 3. The difference isn't much, but it helps. If you're in a hurry, cast Prowl and when you're done, recast it inside the cloak bubble for the full benefit. For the other arcane, I use Arcane Acceleration to increase our fire rate as we won't be using any fire rate mods on our weapon. An additional 60% fire rate will be provided by the companion with Reinforced Bond. These are the mods for my companion, but we only care about the Reinforced and the Tenacious Bond for the build. I tried using molt augmented with Reinforced Bond being the only fire rate source, but it turns out, despite being on max tags, enemies don't die quickly enough compared to Arcane Acceleration, and with a low status chance, you proc less elements, therefore your DPS goes down. The difference is noticeable, and with Arcane Acceleration you won't have to worry about stacking. Before we go to the Archon shards, I want to start with the weapon first, as the weapon influences the options for our Archon shards a little bit. As I mentioned earlier, our weapon of choice is Coda Synapse. Not only does it provide a 20% headshot multiplier bonus from the passive, but it also has inherent corrosive element, which means we can mod for both viral and corrosive at the same time. This is the build and now I will explain it. For the arcane, I use primary overcharge as Ivara has a high energy capacity, which is where prime flow comes in, giving us a 299% multishot when activated. With galvanized chamber and primary overcharge, you can get up to 529% multishot bonus without a riven at max tags. A problem you will probably have, like me, is your riven not having enough multishot to get to the 601% multishot mark. On the riven, all you want is multishot, toxin or cold, and if possible critical chance. All three together will be quite expensive, so at least get a multishot and toxin or cold for viral. When building for critical chance or multishot, you always want to be a little bit over the next tier threshold. I will explain what I mean. Say for example you have 99% multishot, you have 99% chance to shoot 2 bullets and 1% chance to shoot 1 bullet, rendering the 99% multishot useless for that 1% chance. On the other hand, when you go over the threshold with let's say 101% chance, you have 99% chance to shoot 2 bullets and 1% chance to shoot 3 bullets, which means 1% chance to gain 99% multishot instead of losing it. For that reason, your riven dictates your final build. For multishot, you need at least 72% of your riven, which personally I don't have. In my case, you have to compensate with endurance drift or Tau Forged Blue Shard depending on your riven. If your riven has any critical chance, you can get over the 300% critical chance threshold regardless of your role, unlike multishot. If your riven has at least 108% critical chance, you can replace critical delay with point strike, saving 20% fire rate while staying over the 300% threshold. I will show you a table that explains what you need to compensate with in case your riven is below the 72% multishot threshold with stats, so you understand what I'm talking about. Something to clarify, the build works even without a riven mod. I'm just explaining to you what you need on it in case you choose to go for one, as what you want on it is cheap after all. For those who won't use a riven, simply equip Malignant Force and Rime rounds to create viral. Coda Synapse has an already low status chance, so because of that I'm using Hammer Shot instead of Vital Sense, and Malignant Force or Rime rounds depending on your riven's element for viral. We are not equipping Vital Sense because remember we have critical damage boost from our zipline, so the extra 60% critical damage isn't worth the 80% status chance gained on our already low status chance weapon. For the Valence bonus, you want magnetic to do more damage to Eximus units and shielded enemies when a corrupted spawn in. Now for the Exilus mod has. This is the most important mod for the whole build. You see, when I said earlier that Ivara breaks her invisibility with any action other than jumping or rolling, that also includes shooting, ruining the entire point of the build. This is where Has comes in. Having Has allows us to not break our invisibility when we shoot with Coda Snaps. Cloak Arrow does keep us invisible when shooting with loud weapons, but it isn't reliable at all. This mechanic with Has doesn't work on all Warframes like Wisp, which is another Warframe I'm planning on making a video about. Last but not least, we're going to the shards. You need 3 purple shards with primary electricity damage, 1 yellow shard with energy orb effectiveness, and depending on your riven, you choose max energy increase, or anything else that feels convenient to you. 1 energy orb effectiveness is mandatory as it lets you regenerate more energy than you spend, but it will take a little bit of time to get to the 90% max energy threshold for Arcane overcharge to activate. I recommend you use 1 though, because once you hit the threshold, you won't have to worry about energy again. I tried using status sun shards on primary, but the difference wasn't big and they aren't really worth the shard slot. But if you really want to, use it on the last slot, I won't stop you. As for the 4th purple shard, the status weight of viral and corrosive will be too low, but it won't hurt that much if you really want to go with that. In any case, I'm leaving the 5th shard up to you if you have 72% multishot riven. As for the school, I recommend Madurai, as Zendoric gives bonus energy in a regeneration form, which does not work while Prowl is active as it is a channeling ability. That's all for the build, I hope you enjoyed and see you in the next one.